The pen was still in Brandon's hand when he laughed. Not a happy laugh, the kind of laugh that says, I won and you lost. He'd just signed for $140,000 of Dad's money without reading a single word. I'm Leah, and I watched my older brother destroy his life in 15 seconds. Mr. Harrison, the estate lawyer, tried one more time. Mr. Brennan, this early distribution clause has specific conditions attached. I don't need a lecture, Brandon cut him off. I need my money. He snatched the check like it might evaporate. Our father had been dead for 9 days. Brandon hadn't cried at the funeral, hadn't helped write the obituary, hadn't even stayed for the whole service. But he'd driven 3 hours the second he heard the word inheritance. Mr. Harrison's jaw tightened. He slid a thick envelope across his desk. This will arrive at your address in exactly 30 days. What is it? Brandon asked, folding the check into his wallet. Estate reconciliation documents required by law. Brandon shrugged and walked out. The door slammed. Mr. Harrison and I sat in silence. Then he opened another file. Your father was very specific about the timing, he said quietly. The bill arrives in 30 days? 29 days, actually. He wanted your brother to spend the money first. My stomach dropped. All of it? Most of it. Your father knew him well. 29 days later, my phone exploded. 14 missed calls before 9 a.m., all from Brandon. I was at work, managing patient records at a pediatric clinic. I did my job remotely 3 days a week, so I'd been able to stay with Dad during his final year. I called Brandon back during my lunch break. He answered before the first ring finished. Did you know? His voice was shaking. Not with anger, with fear. Know what? The estate bill? The reconciliation notice? Did you know this was coming? I took a breath. What does it say? It says I owe $94,000 to the estate. For Dad's medical bills, funeral costs, legal fees, outstanding debts. It says I have to pay it within 90 days, or they'll garnish my wages and seize assets. He was breathing hard, panicking. Did you read what you signed? I asked carefully. I signed for my inheritance. You signed for immediate early distribution. That means you got paid before the estate was settled. You're still responsible for your share of the debts. That's insane. That's illegal. It's not. It's probate law. Mr. Harrison explained it. You didn't listen. The line went quiet. I could hear traffic in the background. He was outside somewhere, pacing probably. Leah, I spent it. His voice cracked. I spent almost all of it. My chest tightened. How much do you have left? Maybe $12,000. I closed my eyes. He owed $94,000 and had $12,000. What did you spend it on? I put $50,000 down on a boat, paid off my credit cards, bought a Rolex, took Amber to Cancun. Amber, his girlfriend of 3 months. Brandon? I need you to fix this. I couldn't fix it, but I knew who could explain it. I called Mr. Harrison that night. Miss Brennan, he said warmly, I've been expecting your call. My brother is panicking. I imagine so. He owes the estate $94,000, and according to our monitoring, he spent approximately $128,000 of the $140,000 I received. I sat down. You're monitoring his spending? Your father requested we track the account for 30 days to document his choices. That hit me like a punch. Dad had known. He'd known exactly what Brandon would do. Why? I asked. Why did Dad set it up this way? Mr. Harrison was quiet for a moment. Your father loved your brother, but he wanted him to face consequences for once in his life. No one was going to bail him out this time, not even you. What happens now? Brandon has 90 days to pay the estate $94,000. If he can't, we begin asset seizure. The boat, the car, anything we can liquidate. And if that's not enough? Then he enters a court-mandated repayment plan, $1,800 a month for 5 years. If he misses payments, it goes to collections and destroys his credit. I felt sick. Not because Brandon didn't deserve it, but because Dad had planned this from his deathbed. There's something else, Mr. Harrison said. Something your father left for you, but only after Brandon's situation resolves. What is it? You'll see, in 90 days. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about the last conversation I had with Dad. It was 2 days before he died. He was in hospice, so thin I could see every bone. The cancer had eaten him from the inside out. Leah, he whispered. His voice was barely there. I need to tell you something about Brandon. I leaned close. The will, it's not what you think. What do you mean? I'm not punishing him, I'm teaching him. One last time. His eyes were wet. I failed him as a father. I let him get away with too much. I thought love meant protecting him from consequences. Dad, you didn't fail. I did. But maybe I can fix it. After I'm gone. He squeezed my hand with what little strength he had left. Promise me you won't bail him out. Promise me you'll let him learn. I promised. I didn't know what he meant then. Now I did. Dad had spent his whole life cleaning up Brandon's messes. This was the one mess Brandon would have to clean up himself. Or drown in. And I'd promised not to throw him a rope. Brandon showed up at my apartment 3 days after getting the bill. He looked awful. Hadn't shaved, clothes wrinkled, eyes red. I need to borrow money, he said before I even opened the door all the way. I can't lend you $94,000, Brandon. Not all of it, just enough to make a payment, to show the estate I'm trying. I stepped aside and let him in. He paced my small living room like a caged animal. I talked to the boat dealer. They won't take it back. I'm stuck with the down payment. The Rolex is worth maybe $8,000 if I sell it. The trip is gone. That money's just gone. You have $12,000 left, I said. That's something. That's nothing. I need 94. He spun around. You got the house. That's worth way more than what I got. I got the house and $60,000, but I also got all of Dad's medical debts that you're not responsible for. The home care costs, the hospice bills. I owe $47,000 in debts you don't. His face went white. What? Dad's will split the debts proportionally. You got immediate cash. I got the house and the remaining estate, but I also got the debts attached to the house. So you're broke too? No, I'm careful. I knew what I was signing up for. Brandon sat down hard on my couch. This is insane. Why would Dad do this to us? He didn't do it to us. He did it to you. The truth hung in the air like smoke. Brandon looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Not anger. Realization. Brandon left without asking again. I watched him walk to his car, the car Dad had co-signed for, the car Brandon had gotten after wrecking 2 others. I went to my laptop and opened the folder I'd been avoiding. Dad's final year. Inside were spreadsheets. Every medical bill, every medication, every doctor's visit. I'd kept track of everything, not for the estate, for myself, because I needed to see it, to understand what Dad went through. The numbers made me sick. $340,000 in medical costs over 18 months. Insurance covered $180,000. Dad paid $110,000 from his savings. The remaining $50,000 went to credit cards he'd maxed out trying to stay alive. Credit cards I was now responsible for. I looked at another document. Brandon, support history. Dad had tracked it. Every time he'd bailed Brandon out, 20 years of receipts. DUI lawyer, $5,000. Bail for assault charge, $7,500. Debt consolidation loan, Dad co-signed, $15,000. Security deposit after Brandon got evicted, $2,400. Car repairs after Brandon totaled his Honda, $8,000. Emergency loan for gambling debts, $12,000. And on and on and on. Total $127,000 over 20 years. Almost exactly what Brandon had just received in the inheritance. Dad had given Brandon back everything he'd already spent, and Brandon blew it in 4 weeks. I closed the laptop and cried. Not for Brandon, for Dad. For the man who kept trying to save a son who didn't want to be saved. My phone rang at 2 a.m., unknown number. I answered anyway. Leah? Brandon's voice was slurred. Drunk? Where are you? Outside your apartment. Can you come down? I looked out my window. His car was parked crooked in the visitor spot. I threw on a jacket and went down. Brandon was sitting on the curb, bottle of whiskey next to him. You shouldn't be driving, I said. I'm not. I'm sitting. You drove here drunk. I had to talk to someone. Amber left me. I sat down next to him, not too close. What happened? I told her about the estate bill, about how I'm broke. She said she didn't sign up for this and walked out. He laughed bitterly. 3 months. That's all it took for her to decide I wasn't worth it. I'm sorry. Are you? You tried to warn me about her. I had. Amber was 23, Brandon was 36. She'd moved into his apartment after 2 weeks. Quit her job after a month. She was using you, I said quietly. Yeah, just like Dad was using me. Just like everyone's using me. Dad wasn't using you, he was trying to teach you. Brandon turned to look at me. His eyes were unfocused. Broken. Teach me what? That I'm a failure, that I'm worthless? I already knew that, Leah. I've known that my whole life. That's not true. It is. You were always the good one, the smart one, the one Dad was proud of. He was proud of you too. He was ashamed of me. Brandon stood up shakily. He wrote that will to punish me, to show everyone what a screw-up I am. He wrote it to wake you up. I stood too. He's gone, Brandon, and you're still blaming everyone else for your choices. He stared at me, then he got in his car. Brandon, don't. He drove off, swerving slightly. I called the police and reported a drunk driver, gave them his license plate. He got pulled over 6 blocks away, DUI, his third one, mandatory jail time. Brandon spent 30 days in county jail. I didn't visit. I told myself it was because I was busy. But the truth was simpler. I was angry. Angry that even now, even facing financial ruin, he'd chosen to drive drunk. Chosen to risk killing someone. Chosen himself over everyone else. Again, Mr. Harrison called 2 weeks into Brandon's sentence. Miss Brennan, we have a complication. What kind of complication? Your brother listed his car as an asset to potentially liquidate toward his estate debt, but he was arrested for DUI. The car was impounded, and it turns out your father was still on the loan. My stomach sank. Meaning? Meaning the impound fees, the towing, the storage, it's all adding up, and technically those fees attached to your father's estate since he co-signed. How much? $4,500 so far. Growing by $100 per day. I closed my eyes. Can I pay it? You can, but you're not legally obligated. Your brother is. But if I don't, it comes out of the estate, which comes out of my inheritance. Correct. I did the math. Pay $4,500 now to save the car, or let it go to auction and lose it all. Pay it, I said. Take it from my portion. Miss Brennan, your father specifically. I know what he wanted, but I'm not going to let Brandon destroy what's left of the estate. Pay the impound fees. Get the car released, we'll sell it, and put the money toward his debt. Mr. Harrison was quiet. Your father would be proud of that decision. No, I said. He'd be disappointed I had to make it at all. I went to the impound lot myself. The car was a 2019 Ford Explorer. Dad had co-signed for it 3 years ago, after Brandon's previous car was repossessed. The Explorer was in decent shape. I got it appraised, worth $18,000. Still owed $12,000 on the loan. Net value, $6,000. I sold it to a dealer for $17,500. Paid off the loan. That left $5,500. It went directly to the estate to offset Brandon's debt. His debt went from $94,000 to $88,500. He didn't know yet. He was still in jail. But I got a letter from someone who did know, Amber, his ex-girlfriend. Dear Leah, I know you probably hate me. Brandon said you warned him about me. You were right. I was using him. I'm not proud of it. But I wanted you to know something. Brandon's not a bad person. He's just broken. His whole life, your dad fixed everything for him. Brandon never learned to fix things himself. I think that's why your dad wrote the will the way he did. Not to hurt Brandon, but to force him to grow up. I hope it works. Amber. I read the letter 3 times, then I threw it away. Amber didn't get to have an opinion. She'd taken Brandon's money and his dignity and left him with nothing. But part of me wondered if she was right. Was Brandon broken because Dad fixed too much? Or did Dad fix too much because Brandon was already broken? I didn't know, and Dad wasn't here to ask. Brandon got out of jail on a Tuesday. I picked him up because no one else would. He walked out of the county jail in wrinkled clothes, carrying a clear plastic bag with his wallet and keys. He looked smaller, older. Thanks for coming, he said quietly. We drove in silence for 10 minutes. Then Brandon spoke. I lost my job. I wasn't surprised. When? They fired me 2 days after the arrest. Violation of the morals clause or something. What are you going to do? I don't know. More silence. I sold your car, I said. He turned to look at me. What? It was impounded. The fees were stacking up. I paid to get it released and sold it to cover part of your estate debt. You had no right. Dad was on the loan. The impound fees were attaching to the estate. It was either sell it or let it go to auction for nothing. Brandon stared out the window. How much did you get? $50,500 after the loan payoff. Your debt is down to $88,500 now. He laughed. Not a happy laugh, the kind that means you're drowning. Great, only $88,500 to go. You have 60 days left to get $90,000. While I'm unemployed with a DUI on my record. Sure, no problem. You could ask the estate for a payment plan. I'm not doing that. Brandon, you don't have a choice. He turned to look at me. There's always a choice. You just don't like the ones I make. I pulled into his apartment complex. He got out without saying goodbye, and I wondered if this was rock bottom, or if Brandon still had further to fall. 3 days later, Brandon called. Can we talk? In person? We met at a diner. Neutral ground. He looked different, sober, clear-eyed, scared. I need to tell you something, he said, and I need you to not freak out. My stomach dropped. What did you do? I didn't do anything, yet, but I'm thinking about it. About what? He took a breath. Filing for bankruptcy. I stared at him. Bankruptcy won't erase the estate debt. It's classified as a family obligation. It's exempt from discharge. I know, Mr. Harrison told me, but it would wipe out my credit card debt, and it would freeze the estate collection process while the bankruptcy goes through. It would buy me time. Time for what? To figure out what to do, to get a job, to breathe. I understood the logic. But I also understood what he was really doing. Running, again. Dad didn't want this, I said. Dad's dead. The words hit like a slap. He's dead, Leah, and I'm drowning, and I don't have the luxury of doing what he wanted anymore. You never did what he wanted, exactly, so why start now? He stood up. I'm filing next week. I thought you should know. He left. I sat there with cold coffee and the wreckage of our family, and I realized something. This wasn't about money. It never was. This was about Brandon finally facing who he was, and he still didn't like what he saw. The bankruptcy filing hit my desk through Mr. Harrison's office. He sent it with a note. This complicates things. Call me. I called. What does this mean for the estate? It means we can't actively collect from Brandon for 6 to 12 months while the bankruptcy processes. But the debt doesn't go away, it just gets deferred. And my portion? Your portion is unaffected. You'll receive your inheritance, minus your proportional debts as planned. But the estate can't close until Brandon's debt is resolved or written off. Written off? If the bankruptcy court determines he has no means to pay, the estate can choose to absorb the loss or pursue a reduced settlement. How reduced? Potentially pennies on the dollar. Maybe $10,000 instead of $88,000. I did the math. If the estate absorbed Brandon's $88,500 debt, it came out of the total, which meant it came out of my inheritance. Dollar for dollar. He's still taking from me, I said. Even now. Technically, yes, but Miss Brennan, there's something you should know. What? Your father anticipated this. He left a provision. My breath caught. What kind of provision? If your brother files for bankruptcy or defaults on the estate debt, a sealed letter is to be opened, for you and your brother, together. What's in it? I don't know. Your father sealed it himself, but he was very specific. You both have to be present when it's opened. I felt cold. When? Whenever you're ready. But it has to be before the bankruptcy is finalized. I thought about Brandon, about his choices, about Dad's final message. Set it up, I said. I'll tell Brandon. Getting Brandon to agree was harder than I expected. I'm not doing some dramatic reading of Dad's last words, he said when I called. It's required by the estate. If you want the bankruptcy to proceed, you have to be there. Why? Because Dad put it in the will. It's legally binding. He was quiet for a long time. What if I don't want to hear what he has to say? Then you don't get closure, and neither do I. Another pause. Fine, when? Friday, Mr. Harrison's office, 2 p.m. He hung up without confirming, but I knew he'd show up, because Brandon always showed up when there was something in it for him, even if he didn't know what it was yet. Friday came. I arrived early. Brandon arrived exactly on time. We sat in Mr. Harrison's office on opposite sides of the room. Mr. Harrison placed a sealed envelope on the desk between us. It was thick. Cream-colored paper, Dad's handwriting on the front. To my children. Open together. Mr. Harrison broke the seal. Inside were 2 letters, one addressed to me, one to Brandon, and a single sheet with instructions. Mr. Harrison read the instructions aloud. Read your letters in silence, then read them to each other. Only then will you understand. He handed us our letters. I opened mine with shaking hands, and I started to read. Dear Leah, if you're reading this, everything has gone according to plan. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry you had to watch your brother destroy himself. I'm sorry I put you in the position of being his witness instead of his savior. But I need you to understand why. I enabled Brandon for 20 years. Every time he failed, I caught him. Every time he fell, I picked him up. I thought that's what fathers did. I was wrong. I didn't save him. I crippled him. I taught him that consequences weren't real, that someone would always fix his mistakes. And now he's 36 years old and doesn't know how to fix anything himself. So I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I set him up to fail. The will, the early distribution, the debt, all of it was designed to force him to face himself, to hit bottom so hard he'd have to learn to climb out. You're wondering why I asked you to promise not to help him. It's because I know you, Leah. You're a fixer like me, but Brandon doesn't need fixing. He needs to break, completely, and then rebuild himself from the pieces. I love you both, but I failed you in different ways. I failed Brandon by protecting him too much, and I failed you by making you watch. I'm sorry, love, Dad. I looked up. Brandon was staring at his letter, tears running down his face. Read it to me, I said. My voice cracked. He shook his head. You first. I read my letter aloud, every word, every painful truth. When I finished, Brandon wiped his face. Then he started reading his. Dear Brandon, I failed you. Not by cutting you off, but by never doing it sooner. I loved you so much I destroyed you. Every time I bailed you out, I taught you that you didn't have to be responsible. Every time I paid your debts, I told you they weren't real. Every time I fixed your problems, I said you couldn't fix them yourself. I was wrong, and now you're paying for my mistakes. This inheritance isn't punishment, it's a gift. The gift of consequences, the gift of hitting bottom, the gift of learning finally that you're capable of saving yourself. You've spent your whole life thinking you're broken. You're not. You're just untested. I'm giving you a test now. Can you survive without me? Can you stand up when no one's there to catch you? Can you become the man I always knew you could be? I believe you can. I just wish I'd believed it sooner. The debt is real, the consequences are real, but so is your ability to overcome them. Prove me right, son. Prove to yourself that you're stronger than you think. I love you. I'm sorry, and I believe in you, Dad. The room was silent. Brandon folded the letter carefully, then he stood up. I need air, he said, and walked out. I found Brandon sitting on the curb outside the building. He wasn't crying anymore, just staring at nothing. I sat next to him. We didn't speak for 5 minutes. Then Brandon said, "You set me up, yeah." He knew I'd take the cash. He knew I'd blow it. He knew I'd end up here. Yeah, and he did it anyway. I looked at my brother. Really looked at him. He did it because he loved you. That's a sick kind of love. Maybe, or maybe it's the only kind that could save you. Brandon turned to look at me. Do you think I can do it? Climb out of this? I thought about lying, about saying something comforting. But Dad's letter had been truth, brutal, painful truth. So I gave Brandon the same. I don't know, I said. But I think Dad was right about one thing. You've never actually tried. You've always had someone to catch you. What if I can't? Then you can't. But at least you'll know. He nodded slowly. The bankruptcy. I'm going through with it. I know. You understand that means you lose money? When the estate absorbs my debt, it comes out of your share. I know that too. And you're okay with it? I took a breath. No, I'm not okay with it. I'm furious. But Dad made his choice, and you're making yours, and I have to live with both. Brandon stood up. I'm sorry for all of it, for not being there when Dad was sick, for taking the money, for everything. I know. Do you forgive me? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Ask me again in a year, when I see what you do next. He nodded, and walked away. The bankruptcy was finalized 4 months later. Brandon's credit card debts were discharged. His estate debt was reduced to $15,000, payable over 3 years. The remaining $73,500 was absorbed by the estate, which meant my inheritance went from $60,000 to $23,100 after my debts and Brandon's shortfall were accounted for. I'd started with the promise of $60,000 and a house. I ended with $23,500 and a house that needed $30,000 in repairs. I sold the house as is for $150,000. After the realtor fees and paying off Dad's remaining mortgage, I netted $95,000. Added to my $23,500, I had $108,500 total. Brandon had received $140,000 and ended up with nothing but debt. I received less and ended up with more. The math was poetic in a way Dad would have appreciated. But I wasn't happy. I wasn't vindicated. I was just tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of watching Brandon struggle. Tired of carrying Dad's plan on my shoulders. I put the money in a high-yield savings account and tried to move on. But Dad's letter kept replaying in my head. I failed you by making you watch. He was right. I'd watched Brandon fall for 20 years, and I'd done nothing, just like Dad wanted, but it still felt like failure. 6 months after the bankruptcy, Brandon called. I got a job. Doing what? Construction. Framing houses. It's hard work. The pay is okay, but it's something. That's good, Brandon. Yeah, and I'm in a program. What kind of program? Alcoholics Anonymous and therapy. Court mandated from the DUI, but I'm actually going, and it's helping. I didn't know what to say. Leah, I need to tell you something. Okay. I read Dad's letter again. The part where he said, I'm not broken, just untested. I think he was wrong. My chest tightened. Wrong how? I am broken, but not the way I thought. I'm broken in ways that can be fixed, and I'm trying to fix them. How? By showing up, every day, to work, to meetings, to therapy, by not running when things get hard. That's good, Brandon. I'm making my estate payments, $400 a month. I've made 6 payments in a row. I checked my records. He was right. I'm proud of you, I said, and I meant it. Don't be. Not yet. Ask me again in a year, when you can see what I do next. He'd used my own words back to me. Fair enough, I said. We talked for a few more minutes, normal things, weather, work, life. When we hung up, I cried, not from sadness, from hope. Maybe Dad's plan was working after all. A year passed. Brandon made every payment. He got promoted at the construction company, crew lead, better pay, better hours. He moved into a small apartment, nothing fancy, 1 bedroom, but it was his. No co-signers, no bailouts. He texted me a photo of it. First place I've paid for entirely on my own. I texted back. Dad would be proud. He replied immediately. I'm proud of me too. I used part of my inheritance to go back to school. I'd always wanted to be a physician assistant, but never had the money or time. Now I had both. I enrolled in a PA program and threw myself into studying. I thought about Dad constantly, about the sacrifices he'd made so we could have better lives, about how he'd worked himself to death trying to give us everything, and how Brandon had wasted it while I'd taken it for granted. Now we were both trying to honor him, in different ways. Brandon by learning to stand alone, me by becoming something Dad would be proud of. We started having dinner once a month. Just us. No drama, no fights, just 2 people trying to understand each other. At one dinner, Brandon said something that stuck with me. Dad's letter said he failed me by protecting me too much. But I think he protected me because I needed it. And then I needed it so much I couldn't function without it. What changed? I learned to be uncomfortable, to sit with consequences instead of running from them. It sucked, but it worked. 2 years after Dad's death, I graduated from PA school. Brandon came to the ceremony. He sat in the back, but he was there. Afterward, he gave me a card. Inside was a check for $5,000. What is this? I asked. Remember when you paid the impound fees for my car and sold it to cover my debt? Yeah, that was $5,500. This is me paying you back, with interest. Brandon, you don't have to. Yeah, I do. You saved me when I didn't deserve it. Let me say thank you. I took the check, not because I needed the money, but because he needed to give it. Thank you, I said. For what? For showing up. He smiled. Dad taught me that, eventually. We went to Dad's grave that afternoon, both of us. It was the first time we'd gone together since the funeral. Brandon brought flowers. So did I. We stood there in silence for a long time, then Brandon spoke. I finished paying the estate debt last week. I looked at him. All of it? Yeah. 3 years early, I took extra shifts, saved everything, and I paid it off. Dad would be. I know, he interrupted, but I didn't do it for him. I did it for me. I understood. That was the point. Dad had set Brandon up to fail so he could learn to succeed on his own terms. What now? I asked. Now I figure out what's next. Maybe community college, maybe a trade certification. I don't know yet. You'll figure it out. Yeah, he said. I think I will. 3 years after Dad's death, Mr. Harrison called. Miss Brennan, there's one final item from your father's estate. What item? A trust. It was sealed for 3 years. The conditions have been met. What conditions? Your brother's debt had to be paid in full, and you both had to demonstrate financial responsibility for 36 consecutive months. And you have, both of you. The trust is being released. How much? $200,000. Split equally. 100,000 for you, 100,000 for your brother. I sat down hard. What? Your father had a life insurance policy no one knew about. The payout was held in trust until you both proved you could handle it. Congratulations, Miss Brennan, you passed the test. I called Brandon immediately. Did Mr. Harrison call you? Yeah, he said. His voice was shaky. I can't believe it. Dad had one more lesson. What lesson? That if you do the work, the reward comes. Eventually. Brandon laughed. Not bitter. Real. Happy. What are you gonna do with yours? He asked. Pay off my student loans. Save the rest. You? Same. And maybe take a trip. Dad always wanted to see Ireland. He did, I said. So go, for both of you. Come with me, Brandon said suddenly. What? Come to Ireland with me. Let's scatter Dad's ashes there, in the village his grandparents came from. Let's finish this right. I thought about it, about everything that had happened, about the pain and the lessons and the growth. Okay, I said, let's go. We went to Ireland 6 months later, a small village called Doonbeg. Dad's grandparents had emigrated from there in 1947. We rented a car and drove through green hills and stone walls. Everything looked like a postcard. We found the village cemetery. Old, quiet, beautiful. We stood at the edge and opened the urn. Dad's ashes caught the wind and scattered over the graves of his ancestors. Rest easy, Dad, Brandon said. We're okay now. I added, we're better than okay. We learned, finally. We stood there until the sun started to set. Then we walked back to the village pub. It was small, dark wood, warm fire. We ordered Guinness and sat by the window. Do you think he knew? Brandon asked. Knew what? That we'd end up here. Together. Better than we were. Yeah, I said. I think he knew, or at least he hoped. I'm sorry I put you through hell. I'm sorry I judged you so harshly. You had every right. Maybe. But Dad's letter was right. He made me watch you fall, and that hurt me too. Brandon nodded. We both got tested. Just in different ways. Yeah, we drank in comfortable silence, two people who'd survived the same storm and came out stronger. Not perfect, but real. To Dad, Brandon said, raising his glass. To Dad, I echoed. We clinked glasses, and I felt something release. Something I'd been carrying since Dad died. The anger, the resentment, the fear. It was gone, replaced by something quieter. Something like peace. 4 years after Dad's death, Brandon got married. Her name was Claire. She was a teacher, kind, patient, smart. She knew everything about Brandon's past, and she loved him anyway. I stood as a bridesmaid. It was a small wedding, just family and close friends, but it was beautiful. During his vows, Brandon said something that made me cry. I'm not the man I was 4 years ago. I'm not even the man I was last year. I'm becoming someone new every day. And Claire, you see that person. Not who I was, who I'm becoming. Thank you for that. After the ceremony, Brandon pulled me aside. Dad's not here. I know, but I feel like he is, like he's watching. Me too. Do you think he's proud? I looked at my brother, sober, employed, married, happy. Yeah, I said, I think he's proud. I know I am. Brandon hugged me, tight, real. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for not giving up on yourself. We went back to the reception. And I thought about Dad's plan. How cruel it had seemed, how devastating, but how necessary. He'd torn Brandon down so Brandon could build himself back up, and it had worked. Not perfectly, not easily, but it had worked. 5 years after Dad's death, I opened my own practice, a small clinic specializing in underserved communities. The kind of medicine Dad would have loved. I used the remaining inheritance money to fund it. Brandon came to the opening. He brought Claire and their newborn daughter. They'd named her Frances, after Dad. She has his eyes, I said, holding my niece. Yeah, Brandon said, and hopefully his patience, because I'm going to need help. We laughed. Real. Easy. The kind of laughter that comes from surviving something together. Dad would lose his mind over her, I said. I wish he could meet her. Me too. Brandon looked at me. But he's here, in all the ways that matter, in the choices we make, in the people we've become. Yeah, I said, he is. I handed Frances back and looked around the clinic. At the patients waiting, at the staff I'd hired, at the work I was finally doing. This is for him, I said. No, Brandon corrected. This is because of him. There's a difference. He was right. Dad hadn't given us money. He'd given us a foundation, a test, a chance to prove we could survive without him. And we had. Not perfectly. Not easily, but we'd done it. Thank you, Dad, I whispered. For everything. Even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts. People ask me about the inheritance, about how I ended up with more than Brandon even though he took the big check. I tell them the truth. My brother took the cash. I took the responsibility. He learned the hard way. I learned by watching. We both got what we needed. Some people think Brandon got cheated, others think he got what he deserved. But I know the truth. Brandon got the greatest gift Dad could give him. The gift of hitting bottom. The gift of learning to climb out. The gift of becoming someone stronger than he was. I got something different. I got the gift of witnessing transformation, of seeing someone broken become whole, of understanding that sometimes love means letting someone fall. The inheritance wasn't $200,000 split between us. It was the lesson that came with it. That wealth isn't what you're given, it's what you build. That family isn't about who's there when times are easy, it's who's there when times are hard. That love sometimes looks like cruelty. But it's the kind of cruelty that saves lives. Brandon and I survived Dad's final test. We came out better, stronger, more whole, and that's worth more than any amount of money, because money runs out, but the lessons that break you and rebuild you, those last forever. Dad knew that. He bet everything on it. And he was right.